Howdy, howdy, everybody. How you doing today? Well, Carpo's coming at you with another rambling rant about some philosophy or another that I somehow compounded within my mind in the last few hours or so. I've been rambling around this morning, getting a few things done, take the kids to school. And the whole meanwhile, I always have various thoughts in my head. And I guess this morning I woke up, and it's one of those mornings where I had just really vivid dreams, and I woke up right in the middle of them, and it was interesting. And I was in the shower, and I was thinking about the symbolism behind. I'd found several knives in different campsites that people had left behind, and I was holding all these knives and really nice, ancient-looking daggers and stuff. And I started thinking about the symbolism of the dreams that I have, and somehow I was thinking of the idea of walking on water, and I thought about, it's turning water to wine, and then I thought about walking on water, and I often think about these allegories, these metaphors they used for Jesus, and I know a lot of people want to believe that it's a literal interpretation that Jesus walked on water and turned water to wine, and that's fine, but my interpretation of this is much more metaphoric. Of course, it's alchemy, and turning water to wine to me symbolizes the idea that you can take the mundane and convert it to whatever you want, and make it a wonderful, delicious thing. I mean, you can do this with turning lead into gold. It's just the same alchemy. It's the same idea. And I think it was more appealing to the masses than the lead to gold, which had lost kind of its luster. Now, the Christians took a lot of these ideas from, pagan beliefs. Whether people want to believe it or not, it's irrelevant. History shows that the pagans and the Christians fought and used the exact same symbolism, except for they go back much previous. I mean, the Christian cross is a much more ancient symbol. It represents the four directions, the four elements, so many different things, and it's obviously not owned by one group. So, and I heard this really crazy story. Well, anyway, first want to get to my point. I was thinking about, Jesus walking on water. Now, the water represents turbulence of life, and walking on water is being able to rise above it and being able to remain calm in the face of the flowing disaster that we call life sometimes. And when you begin to see things this way, everything falls into place. Life becomes a beautiful thing. You don't find yourself fearing anything. You don't find yourself afraid of people or suspicious of people. You don't find yourself angry. You learn to calm your mind and yourself, and this is what people or ideas like Jesus taught. Whether or not Jesus existed or didn't exist, or how a person feels about Christianity or paganism, is irrelevant in the historical context, because everyone shares these stories. The idea was never to outdo anyone. Of course, the monotheist version always wanted to push out these polytheist beliefs, even though they don't realize that even the mystery schools in the ancient times, their belief was in the all. So the all is the one God. It's just incomprehensible for people to imagine that we are part of the all, that we aren't separate from it. And this is where monotheism became, and this is where theology took off and became rampant, along with its dogma, and many of the original teachings were obscured. And so anyway, looking at these metaphorical writings, you can, from the alchemist standpoint, everything's there that you need to know. It's a really interesting story that goes back to ancient times, and this was a story that predates the Bible. I was going to read this story, it doesn't predate the Bible. I can't remember the exact story now. I believe that it predates the New Testament, and it's a story of Jesus, a different story of Jesus. Anyway, it has to do with the cross, the tree that, who was it that was walking? I believe it was Moses was walking, and he saw this tree that was shaped like a cross, and it was growing out of the skull, within its roots was Cain, who was trapped within the roots of the tree. Well, he cut off a switch or a stick from this tree and ended up using it to part the sea. And the same tree was chopped down and they attempted to use it to make a house. And they said no matter where they put it, it was either too long or too short. So they ended up abandoning it and just threw it as a bridge between Jerusalem and Babylon, I think. Anyway, all of this is symbolic. I could read the whole long story and just take forever, but they used it as a bridge for a while, and then one, I can't remember which Persephone or one of the goddesses walked up to the bridge and saw it and knew that it was a sacred tree, and so she bowed and prayed to it and then walked around it through the stream. The king saw this and he decided that it must be really sacred, so he went and he covered the whole thing with gold. Sometime later, in the middle of the night, his grandson came and he stole all the gold for himself, and then he hid the evidence, which he hid the tree. So the tree was buried for a long time, then it resurfaced, and then it was used as a bridge between Jerusalem and somewhere else, this island, I can't remember, wherever Jesus, I guess, was crucified. So Jesus was walked across this tree onto the island, or wherever it was, and after that they had no wood on the island to make a cross out of. So they ended up taking the tree back up, and they slid it right down the middle and made a cross out of it and crucified Jesus. And sometime later, the tree was inspected, and I can't remember what her name was, but she found that the tree was actually a combination of 4 different trees. So the tree, the cross, symbolized the 4 elements. It was 4 different types of tree within one, symbolizing the 4 elements. And I found this just fascinating. The only part that I forgot, that I left out, was the original tree. Actually, I believe the seeds, there was an angel guarding the tree, and she wouldn't give the tree or let anyone touch the tree or go to the tree, but she gave 3 seeds, I believe, to Moses, and these seeds were planted in the skull of Adam, I believe in Eden. They were searching for Eden. These stories are fascinating. I mean, to a lot of people, they're just total BS, that they're just these made-up stories to appease people. But even when I was really young and anti-religious, I knew there was something more to it. I just knew that I couldn't understand it yet. And the more I learn, the more I'm able to understand and pick up and see the symbolism within it. And that's really the key. So that was really all I had. I just wanted to talk about that. I just found it interesting. It's when you start hearing more of these allegories, and you'll start to see how they compare to the idea of alchemy. And you can compare them to the Hermetic principles and principles of growth and understanding. I mean, walking on water seems so obvious that now that I look at it for what it is, and the thing is, many scholars all have their own interpretations of what these mean. So I'm not saying this is fact. These are the stories I've heard, and that's what I believe. Walking on water is a symbol of rising above. That turning to wine is, just like mercury or lead into gold. Using that mercury and sulfur, which we have all these different symbols that represent us as humans that are reflected in the cosmos. And it makes you feel a lot bigger and a lot smaller at the same time. But ultimately now I'm just pondering on my own ideas. So I'll leave it at that. Does everybody have a good day? Talk to you soon.